Are you trying to get your shift together?
Welcome to the Shift Sisters podcast, where real conversations inspire real transformations. We're not experts, but we're experiencers. I'm Sandra Sa.
And I'm Jennifer Richter.
We're your Shift Sisters.
Whether you're shifting like a sloth or it looks like you're having an exorcism, this is your space to breathe, reflect, and remember. We're here to talk shift with you.
All right, welcome Shifties. We are super excited to deep dive into this episode as we have our first guest speaker, or as we like to call them, Shift Whisperer, in to speak about birth order. So we are deep diving into our dynamic episodes and our series. And today we have a special guest that we will be asking lots of questions about and really focusing on this aspect of birth order. So we have Emma Butler on this episode who will guide us through this journey of birth order and how the order in which you were born has implications on your personality and how you relate to others. So Emma, welcome and thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much
being
for
on our
having me.
episode
It's such an
today.
honor.
Awesome, awesome. So before we get started and deep dive into the topic at hand, we're going to start off, as we always do, with our check-ins. So, Emma, you may or may not know this, but we on the Shift Sisters podcast have something called a shift forecast. And the forecast gives us an opportunity to check in with other than just the simple, I'm doing fine, I'm doing well, I'm good terms, because obviously, like the weather, our emotions change. So, Jen, I'd love to check in with you. What is your internal forecast for today?
Oh, girl, I am moonlit and moody. And it's quiet, right? Introverted and sensitive to the unseen. And it's been like a couple days. And I'm not trying to rush through it. I'm just kind of sitting with it. I just feel the need to like quietly withdraw, but in like just in a nurturing way. And unseen, I feel like sensitive to the unseen is like those comments that people make that you normally don't say. Hey, you know what? That was kind of rude and it hurt my feelings. Normally you let them go. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And that's okay.
Yes, yes. Well, we want you to come in any way that you are. So,
Mm-hmm.
feeling that, let's express it. Let's talk about it because there's no, that's who you are. That's what you're bringing to the table. And today,
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling mostly sunny. I am steady and hopeful. I feel open. I'm super excited about our episode today. There's just a lot of really positive, high frequency energy around me. And I think I'm just ready for anything really at this point. Like that's the kind of energy I'm kind of standing in today. So it
I
feels
love
good.
it.
How about you,
Sandra, you
Emma?
took the
How are you
words
feeling
right out
today?
of my mouth. I'm feeling mostly sunny, but with like a hint of electric storm. I really enjoyed that one. I feel like with a topic that I'm
Mhm.
so passionate about, it's easy for me and it's just kind of who I am. I have so many opinions, I have so many thoughts, and so I'm excited to talk about those. And I also feel like it's really important for me today to speak openly and honestly, because I think that when we are trying to make it sound like we have it all together, that can further marginalize people who need our help. So I am mostly sunny, but feeling electric, like spicy almost.
That's totally,
Yay. We love
that's
a little
totally in our vibe. We love spicy.
We love spicy. So thanks for checking in, Emma. And I know that with our check-ins, there are some accompaniments to that. So Jen, can you speak to anything that, we can do to help support any one of those check-ins?
Yes, we're going to work with mostly sunny today. And essential oils do work with our emotions as well. So we're going to talk about the oils that pair with that. So I have lemon
Mm,
and frankincense. And lemon helps with focus. The delightful citrusy aroma of lemon oil engages the mind and aids concentration. While lemon supports the emotional body, its major effects are experienced in the mental field. The crisp scent of lemon oil improves one's ability to focus. Lemon is a wonderful aid for children struggling with school as it dispels confusion, bestows clarity. And then with frankincense, which this part doesn't say it, but frankincense is like that father nurturing oil. Myrrh is mother, frankincense is father. And with family dynamics, I think that's really important to point out. But frankincense is truth, right? Frankincense reveals deception and false truths. It invites individuals to let go of lower vibrations, lies, deceptions, and negativity. Frankincense recalls the memory, spiritual understanding, gifts, wisdom, and knowledge the soul brought into the world. It is a powerful cleanser of spiritual darkness. Frankincense also supports creating a healthy attachment for one's father. It assists in spiritual awakening and it helps an individual feel the love of the divine. So I have used frankincense, for example, like if I felt like one of my kids was needing more support from my husband and maybe he was still trying to figure out how to do that, I would rub frankincense on their feet at night or whatever to kind of like just help along and assist with that emotion and stuff. Focus and truth, right, is what that mostly sunny is bringing today. And we can do a little breath work if you want before we talk about our awesome sips.
Yes.
But it's an open heart breath where we inhale for 4 and we exhale for 2, but with that sigh, like we've done in the past, right? That audible sigh. So we go in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay, so we're going to do that a couple of times. And I'll just count visually. And let's go in for 4. There you go. All right, so we'll do it again, one more, and then sip. I think we can all agree I am not a breathwork practitioner, but geez, I'm going to figure this out.
No,
It
sometimes
just helps to
it
recenter.
so helps. Like taking that breath has now, I feel a little refocused, a little more re-energized, but also calmer. So thank you for
Mhm.
leading us through that, Jen. So our shift sip. So we have our sips that we'd like to create and share with all of our listeners. And I try to find different things that I typically don't drink and I just try it started off in the pantry and then see what I can come up with. And I'm on this beetroot kick, just for all the health benefits, so circulation, blood pressure, all of those different things. And I love me a latte. I love something with milk and a little sweet. So I have this highly pink, which always color, um, latte. It is made with whatever milk you'd like, so coconut, almonds, oat, whatever you prefer, and some beetroot powder, just a little bit, with some maple syrup and cinnamon. So it feels like fall or autumn in a cup, but it's beetroot. And I know that sounds a little hippie and kind of off the grid because you're thinking about coffees and lattes, but it's super yummy. You don't taste that earthy, what you think of as beets. Since I'm a matcha lover, this is kind of similar in that, but love it and am going to kind of incorporate that in my rotation.
I ended up making one of your past beetroot sips, and I probably didn't do it right as far as quantity, but I did not pomegranate juice, right? Because I can't have that for an allergy. So I did cranberry juice and I added some honey because it's not as sweet. And I did the beetroot powder, stirred it up really good, and then added the bubbly water to it. It tasted like a earthy wine.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
but the weird thing is when I started sipping on it, I'm like, it's kind of weird, kind of intriguing, but I want more of it. And then I was like addicted to it and I couldn't stop. Like, I don't know. It was delicious.
Amazing. Amazing. Emma, do you like beetroot or beets at
I
all?
don't mind it, but Dwight Schrute from The Office, I can quote every line of every episode. I am pro beet because of Dwight Schrute. I'm not sure. It's a beautiful color, but I'm not a big wheatgrass matcha. It tastes like I'm eating like just mouthful of like earth. And maybe maybe at some point I'll grow out of that, but it's a beautiful color. Godspeed. Godspeed, ladies.
Yes. Yes.
She's like, I'm gonna dye Easter eggs with it, but I am not eating.
Wonderful. Well, this was a great check-in. Thanks, Jen, for helping lead that. And now we're gonna get into it. So I'd love to just give a little quick overview of Emma. So Emma Butler, LPC, is a compassionate therapist with a focus on helping adults and adolescents navigate life shifts. Whether they're wrestling with major transitions, family dynamics, or the weight of job-related stress, specializing in intimate partner violence, sexuality, and empowerment, Emma combines a humanistic approach with an insightful understanding of how past experiences shape our present day emotions. They also impact our behavior and also our relationships. So she believes that much of the struggle that clients face stem from outdated coping mechanism and a lack of self-compassion. So we are super excited to have her on our episode today. And once again, please join me in welcoming Emma to the podcast. Yay. Um, so, Emma, I would love, before we get started and dive into our topic at hand, just kindly introduce yourself and let our shifties know
Yes,
a little
thank
bit
you
more
so
about
much
you.
for all your kind words. I wanted to clarify, I am an LPC-A. Basically, I'm not fully licensed yet, but I am able to do everything that an LPC would be able to. And we're not supposed to like say that, you know what I mean? I just throwing it out there. I'm still in the ethics class mindset from school. Hi, I'm Emma. I was raised in the suburbs of Chicago. You will probably hear my accent. I went to SMU for college, did not know I had an accent until I got there, and kids would come to my dorm room to hear me say certain things. And I'm not gonna. My dad packed my backpack. That was the one. Okay. Um, I know that'll do it.
I got it.
I am a Midwest girl at heart. I do miss it dearly, but I do not miss the lack of sunshine. Incredibly depressing.
Mm,
I have a younger
yes.
sister. Her name's Clara. We're 14 months apart, but 2 grades in school, and she is my best friend. Nobody can make me laugh harder.
Mm.
Nobody can piss me off more, though. So that's just how sisters are. I mean, I would do anything for her. My parents are the definition of love. They've been married almost 40 years and they are so obsessed with each other and are so open about how much they love each other and why. And it's just such an inspiration. My dad is also just a killer girl dad. Um, I have a boyfriend feels so high school, college when I hear it, which no problem, but I don't know. But we've been together over 7 years. Um, can I share just briefly how we met? It's the coolest thing. Okay. So I'm
Mhm.
obviously from
Yes.
Chicago and I was visiting schools, colleges, and I knew that I did not want to go anywhere cold because my mom would not be able to drop me off in front to my classes, right? And I was looking at schools in the South and I learned that I'm not really a Southern girl. I kind of need a city nearby. And I toured SMU as a junior in high
Mm.
school after feeling like, Mom, I don't like any of these schools. Like, is this so when I got to SMU, I started crying and I was like, boom, early decision. I want to go here. But on my tour group, junior in high school, my boyfriend from Long Island, New York, was in our tour group. And my mom and I were trying to take a selfie of ourselves, and his dad offered. And then my mom and his dad were chatting the entire tour. His dad made us exchange phone numbers at the end of the tour. We were in high school. I was like, I'll never see this guy again. And then I saw him at Bed Bath and Beyond going into sophomore year with his dad and his triplet brother who was going to SMU. And then I saw him again and I was like, he's grown up. Okay, I kind of like this. And then we just we didn't
Mm.
want a relationship in college, but it just happened and he's wonderful. I'm just so beyond lucky and blessed. But yeah, I'm also a huge dog girl. If I won the lottery, I would rescue
Mm.
every rescue dog, like create like a haven for dogs. Oh, okay. I think
Mhm.
that's
You get the dream, the dream. Oh, I love it. I love it. Awesome.
And then
Um,
they'll wash all the dogs with the Bed
bingo.
Bath and Beyond stuff.
Bingo. That's why it's there.
Full circle. Full circle. Oh, I love it. I love it. Awesome, awesome. So, thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself, Emma. And what we're going to do right now is get into the topic at hand. So, let's just get into what does it mean, the whole birth order. So, Emma, would you mind just naming each birth order and the characteristic and traits that are
Absolutely. And
assigned
my
with
light
those?
just died on me. I hope you guys can still see me okay, right? Okay.
Yep, we can see you good.
Alrighty.
Yep,
So
we can see you good.
the birth orders, I guess the categories are you have your firstborn, the oldest, and the traits that align with the firstborns are responsible, reliable, they're organized, conscientious, they're authoritative. We tend to like structure and rules, and we are people pleasers. I'm saying we because I am an oldest. We seek approval from parents and authority figures, and it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Those firstborns are assuming kind of care and a little bit of responsibility for those other kids. So then we have the middle child. They are adaptable and diplomatic. They are also kind of people pleasers because they might try and seek attention in ways because they have the firstborn ahead of them, and they're like, no, I want the attention. They're also really great at negotiating and compromising. Sometimes they can struggle with identity, and sometimes they are rebellious, or they're also peacekeeping. So they might resist authority, or they might be the mediator and the peacekeeper. Then we have the youngest, the last born, the baby of the family. They are, it sounds bad, attention seeking, but they're used to being doted on by everyone, all these siblings, parents. They're usually more free spirited and fun loving than the oldest. Sometimes they can be kind of risk taking, they're more on the creative side. And, I think, I don't know, I've always been jealous of the babies of the family because I'm like, oh, you had so much attention. And then we have the only child. They are the sole child in the family. They are mature for their age, having spent so much time with adults. They are detailed and conscientious, kind of like oldest children. They are high achievers, which is also similar to firstborns, and they're independent and comfortable being alone. But they also might struggle with peer relationships since they didn't have that sibling dynamic growing up.
Wow. Wow. It's just you're saying all of these traits, and I'm thinking about myself and just others and saying, gosh, that just marks off and checks off all of the boxes. Emma, you mentioned that you are
Yes,
the
ma'am.
oldest in your family. We're going to go around and talk about that. But when you think about your position in your family, how do those characteristics resonate with
Sometimes
you?
I sometimes I find myself being like, okay, Emma, stop being such the oldest. And I also think there's a caveat for the oldest daughter. I find myself, I will pack toiletries for a vacation. My younger sister, she knows she doesn't have to because I have them. And and I get frustrated with it, but it's kind of just it's how it is, right? And I have to remind myself that I love that she can rely on me for that. And I'm grateful for it, but I also feel like I can be the Debbie Downer or like the bad guy sometimes because I'm such a obedient rule follower. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. How about you, Jen? Where are you in the family birth order dynamic?
Well, I'm technically the baby, but I don't know. I think that I have like such an adaptability quality about myself that in an environment, if I have to be like, the only child characteristics or the first child characteristics or whatever middle child, I feel like I'm very flexible because even though I was the baby, both my siblings were 12 years older than me, and I only grew up with one of them. And so it's basically like starting over, right? And so I'm really interested to get in with Emma to hear like how that actually all breaks down because there's so many variables, even within my own self. So
Love
it'll
that
be
dynamic. I
interesting.
love that. That
But
is,
I mean, you can
ooh,
dote on me
that is
like I'm
such a
the
great
baby.
foreshadowing moment for what I'm going to talk about. I'm all excited now. Okay, Sandra.
So I am the baby, but I'm in the same dynamic where so there's three of us, and my next sibling is 7 years older. So I had a combo of like, hey, I'm the creative, I'm the fun one, I'm the spoiled one, but also I had to do things on my own because my siblings were, in high school when I was still in elementary school and wanted to play with dolls. So it's this like hybrid. Like I definitely resonate with a lot of what the youngest is, but I also feel like I was forced into, I guess, this, independent only child kind of feel or oldest child kind of feel. So I love this topic. I'm just super excited to hear, more about that. So Emma, when you think about family dynamics, as you just heard from myself and Jen, we are the youngest, but there is a big difference in age gap to the next child. So, talk to me about other dynamics that may affect birth order. So, adopted children, let's say if a child passes away, or even like what we just described, a huge age gap. What
I
implications does that
think that
have
you guys
on
are
birth
such a
order?
great example of kind of the complexities of birth order because there is no, right or wrong. And I think that sometimes our personal traits can impact it. But I also want to note that birth order has a lot to do with how our family treats us. And we kind of mold to that, we
Mm,
respond to that. And I think that that definitely increases some tendencies or decreases others. So for you guys, yes, you're the youngest, but I think my rule of thumb when I think about then where's the only child cutoff, to me, it's if you're in eighth grade and you have a sibling who's a senior in high school, you are on such different wavelengths that to me, I think that's my cutoff of like the only child. But I also think that only children, in that sense, like how you guys were, you still have the cool older siblings that can kind of show you the way where it's the best of both worlds. But when there's an adopted child, usually professionals suggest too that the adopted child should assume the youngest in the birth order. So like the next chronological so that it doesn't throw things off. And an example of this would be if you have a 9-year old and you decide to add a 12-year-old, if you decide to adopt a 12-year-old, that will disrupt the birth order, if that makes sense. Um, and obviously, adoption is
mhm.
wonderful. And I think that this is the ideal way that professionals say, but an adopted child is just still equally lovable and wonderful. And I love adoption. But the death of a child, I was so sad when I was doing like my research about this because it can
Yeah.
really distort birth order. So, and it can reset things, honestly. So, if that second middle child, if the oldest dies and the second middle child is kind of forced into this role of maturity, especially in such a heavy, hard time where
Hmm.
they've never really had to deal with stuff like that in the family. Um, and then I
Huh.
know that if a youngest child dies, then sometimes parents will try and have another child, and that child is kind of supposed to fill the void, and it can really be harmful, honestly, where parents can be overprotective and anxious, rightfully so, but
Hmm.
they might feel like they are deeply connected to someone they've never met. It can take on like unusual levels of responsibility or empathy and identity.
I to Yeah, I totally get that because I have three children, all very spaced apart, 27, 18, and 11. And between my middle and my youngest, we had lost a baby. And um and when we had Charlotte, I was like overprotective, right? Because then you have that fear of like, oh my God, I don't want this to happen again. What happened? Blah, blah, blah. And then it hit me, you know what? I am not doing her any justice by treating her this way. I need to really just, treat her like I do all my children. She's not fragile. She's not a flower that she's going to fall apart. She needs to be, brought up in the same home with the same rules and the same expectations of all of the children. And I think it finally hit me, but I also am reminded very often from my boys why does Charlotte get away with this? You need to make her, you never let us get away with that. And I'm like, okay, thank you for bringing that up. I'll take care of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Emma, you were talking about, the family that potentially tries to have another child after the loss of a child. And I'm wondering, as that child, how that feels too, right?
Mm,
That's a heavy, like, burden to load. It's like, I'm really trying to replace the love that they had, and
It's
that's
mhm,
confusing
so
too if they're
heavy.
hearing this
Um,
name that is not them, and it's like this entity, like, okay, who is this person? Everyone is sad about them, and then they kind of come to me and then they're not as sad. It really throws things off, and I think that Jen, I think that's the perfect example of kind of wanting to be like, okay, we're not, this child is going to be safe and healthy and okay, and I'm not doing that again. But it does, unfortunately, work against you, right? Where your daughter's like, whoa, whoa. And I'm so glad that you realized that and you were like, nope, okay, we got to just go with the flow here. But I love that you have two boys and then you got your daughter.
mhm.
mhm.
I do. And I do have my sweet daughter in spirit as well. And it's been really interesting that Charlotte on her own, because kids are so much more intuitive and connected with souls from in spirit and in human form. And she kind of connected with her sister in spirit on her own at a really early age. And so that's when I talked to her about it and shared with her, what that is and how it all happened. And so it's actually kind of sweet. They have their own little relationship in spirit, and it brings me a lot of peace.
And I love that, Jen. I think, I'm sorry to
Absolutely.
interrupt you, Sandra. I think a lot of parents, which there's no harm in it at all, but a lot of parents would say, we are not talking about that. We're not going to think about it. We're not going to talk about it. But the problem is, kids are smarter than we give them credit for, and they pick up on your vibes about it, and they'll know, okay, this is some big, scary, untouchable thing. And so I love that you noticed it and you saw that it was coming out. And so you encouraged the conversation. It wasn't this scary, taboo thing where it, for the long run, Charlotte will be better adjusted and in touch with herself, right? Nice job. That's really awesome.
Yeah. And
Thanks.
imagine down the road where you have to say, well, there was another sibling, and it's something, it could be shocking to get that
Hmm.
information as, an adult or as a teenager. So having that as a part of the conversation from the beginning, I think is just a beautiful way to navigate the family. So all right. So we discussed birth order, what they all look like, our orders. And now I want to go a little bit deeper into the conversation and talk about how those traits, characteristics, your birth order affects you unconsciously, consciously in your day-to-day life. So, what are some things that you've seen, Emma, in your work, where birth order can affect, relationships? Where have you seen that?
Honestly, when I was kind of compiling my little bullet points on each birth order, I was so, I felt called out almost, where I was like, okay, this is exactly me. Um, where, oldest children, they date seriously. And I think they date seriously, but when they make friendships, relationships, they go into it with the mindset of this is stable and this is going to be long term. And I also think that, eldest kids, they naturally are protective and responsible and a leadership role. And I see that with myself, but also I was so baffled when I kind of pieced it together where oldest children are drawn to dependable and independent partners, who kind of support their goals but still challenge them. And that is exactly my relationship to a T. Although my boyfriend is a triplet, he's three boys, and then he has an older sister who's 5 years older. Um, my boyfriend is a middle child, and he is so independent and he's so dependable and consistent where when you read a horoscope and you're like, how do they know? That's how I felt when I was reading about this for an oldest child in relationships. Um, but you guys are youngest, so middle children in relationships and I guess friendships. I don't know. I think when I say relationships, it's a catch-all. But they are drawn to people who are socially like skilled, I think, and they're easygoing and supportive. Where the eldest children, they want somebody to kind of challenge them, but middle children, they do value that like adaptability, but also supportiveness and gentleness, I think, and harmony, essentially. And then youngest children, drum roll for my ladies. See, this is why I just like I no,
You won't
no, no,
hurt our
no.
feelings. You can
Don't
just
no, no,
say
no.
it,
I know
girl.
you know
Say
Say
I
it.
it.
would. You know I would put it out there, but I'm envious. So I realized that you guys bring the fun, the spontaneity to relationships, that you crave excitement. I am like the safest person ever.
Yes.
Come on. Um, and you guys are more drawn to mature and grounded people, but also I'm sorry, youngest children value partners who embrace creativity and individuality, which I think I can see that both of you are so creative.
I'm like, okay, I fit the mold. You're right. You're
I
right.
mean, it's perfect. But I have to say, I am blessed with a wonderful husband, and this man spoils me. And it just speaks to my youngest, that birth order space, because I revel in it. And it's just like, oh, that's all I want and all I need. But this is fascinating. It's like it definitely when I think of Jen and myself, it just hits so many wonderful check
Well,
boxes for us.
it's so weird because I'm like, don't give me that baby like label or whatever because I'm so fiery and I'm like, no, I'm independent. I'm gonna be like the first child or whatever. And then she says all this, and I'm like,
Well,
well,
I
can't
guess that's
deny it.
me.
Shit.
Twist my
Okay.
arm.
Okay, I'll take it. It's true. Fine. And literally, like everything she talked about with the first child, totally Riley. Second child, totally Ashton. So, yep, I
Amazing,
guess you
amazing.
know what you're talking about.
Well, it's such an important tool, right? When you think about it, because it could help you navigate. Like I even started thinking about this with my team at work. So I had talked with them briefly about, getting into this topic. And
I
I was
ask
like, what is your
everyone
birth order? What
always.
is
I
your
always
birth
ask,
order?
do you have
Mm.
siblings? And I've hit,
Yes.
I don't know a lot of only children, but my boyfriend's triplet, his youngest triplet. And they all look super differently, by the way. I always have to put that out there because it's not like copy paste, copy paste. I don't know. Yes, but his youngest triplet is dating a girl who's an only child, and she is the only child that I've really actually gotten close with and known, and she is like the perfect only child. She is so mature, she's so self-sufficient, and she has so much depth, and she's so caring and supportive, and he's that youngest child, and it just goes perfectly. It fits. I love it. It makes me so happy. So I ask everyone always, like, do you have siblings? Are you the oldest?
Yeah.
What is Michael? I know Adam is the first, firstborn. What is Michael?
So my husband is the youngest. So we have two youngest people together. And what's interesting is he feeds all of my like anything, right? So if I'm interested in something, he's just super giving and loving, but he's also a baby, like in the you could tell.
He wants to be loved and all that other stuff too.
We provided to one another in a very unique way in our relationship because just we have our personalities are different. So listening to this as well, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just, it's so spot on. It's so spot on. And for me, it feels like a love language, right? Like when you read the love languages, it's like, it's another tool to help with communication and another tool to also check yourself. Because
Mm,
there are so many times where I'm like, am I being the bratty, spoiled, little girl? Or, am I really asking for what I need? Or so
yeah.
that's really fascinating.
I do ask myself that too. I just never said it out loud.
There you go, girl.
I'm not going to admit that I'm questioning if I'm being a baby right
You don't
now.
have to.
Oh, yeah. Right, right. Um, Wonderful. So let's go into our next question. So how does birth order shape the roles that so we talked about, relationships, but does in other relationships, so for work or things like that, how do you think that this knowledge could help us? Or, for my work, I lead a team. I have a team of about 9 to 10 folks. So I would love to hear your thoughts, Emma, on like beyond kind of the family or relationship, how
I
you
think
use
that it's
this to help
important
us.
to, so birth order, I mean, like you said, Sandra, it's kind of like love languages, right? It's like a little tidbit of information where we can learn it about ourselves to better our relationships. But with birth order, it kind of gives us an edge of our conflict resolution styles, how we are in conflict, or when we just kind of have to be a little more assertive, which I'm sure is super common at work. But I'm not, I'm sure it's not surprising that firstborns tend to be assertive and dominant and kind of say it how it is. So I think if you had a boss that, was pretty blunt, told you exactly how it was, didn't really candy coat it, I think that some people would be like, oh my gosh, they hate me. No, it's kind of just how they are as a person. But there is a fine line, right? You can be an asshole and too blunt, but you can also say it calmly, safely, and directly. Middle children in the workplace, big time mediators. I think that they're going to be more likely to not voice a concern if other people are voicing concerns. They're going to swallow that and they're going to, try and make people happy, feel heard. And I think youngest children in the workplace, you guys are those little spitfires, right? Like you're creative and you are showing up in ways that with creativity that oldest children only imagine and want to have, you know. Um and you have these cool free thinking ways about situations that I know like you need that in a workplace or else it's just going to be, boom boom boom. And so that fun, unique individuality that you guys offer is so important.
That's so awesome. Conflict resolution. Like I feel like, that's a book you can write on its own with like the birth orders because, my style is when I started to emerge as a leader in my work, I wanted to please everyone. I wanted to be the happy, sweet leader, and I wanted everyone to like me. So I would do all of these things that, fast forward 20 years now in my present day, I would never do. And I think it was carrying a lot of that, just some of those characteristics of birth order. And one of the things that I feel like I excel at, that I love in my current work, is the problem solving piece of it. I always say, like, I'm playing three-dimensional chess right now, people. I need to figure out a creative solution to figure out this problem because a door is not shut. You just have to find a different way out. And I think I also just, I have a problem with that kind of mentality of it is what it is. And
Oh,
I'm
that
just like,
is that
no,
is like
let's
my
think outside of the box.
tagline. It
Let's find
is what it
a way.
is.
You know what, Sandra? I was thinking, you know how you're always doing these creative team building things? What you were
Hmm.
talking about is the door's not shut. You just have to find a different way out. You should do an escape room for one
Oh,
of your team building things and let them find their way out.
absolutely. And
Teamwork.
I could see like some of my members of my team totally
Uh-huh.
shutting down. Like there isn't, an instruction booklet or a manual or a place, and I could
Oh,
see that stressing some others
no,
out,
I
while
no,
others
I also
like
don't. If I'm in an
happily.
escape room, I probably could do it like with my boyfriend or my sister, but I don't want to hear feedback. I'm locking in. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to find my way out. So team building escape room, it'd be like and then there were none, that Agatha Christie book. I wouldn't be able to deal with it. I'm sorry.
She'd be
Well,
like, I'm not only packing the toiletries for the escape room, I'm gonna get everybody out. Don't
And I don't want
worry, no
feedback.
one's
I don't want
drowning here.
opinions. I'm going to get there, so just let me.
yes, yes. No, for sure. It's like I said, I feel like I'm going to look at people in a whole different light after this conversation because it's just so important. And I think people tend to just chalk it up to personality, or if they're being really challenging, or not structured enough. And it's like, no, well, maybe there's a different way to approach that person. And I feel like I need the handbook for that, for because there's just certain things that I just can't, relate to. But I love that we're bringing this out to folks to really consider when they're dealing interpersonally with others, and all the things that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we here talk about shifts at the Shift Sister podcast. We talk about shifts that happen in our lives and in our viewers' lives, and some of them are small and some of them are big. And I wanted to just speak about when someone is actively or in a shift emotionally, spiritually, or even professionally. How might their birth order affect how supported or resisted that change is by others?
And I think this is tricky. And I wanted to give a little, oh gosh, I can't say the word asterisk. Okay, the little thing. So
Yes,
yes,
a footnote or
when,
something.
Sandra, when you were talking about how people can use this as tools, I think that so quickly today we are like, it's a big red button and we slam down and it's like criticize. I would encourage people when somebody's doing something that you're like, be curious, don't be critical. It has happened so many times where like I have a client who's complaining about something and I'm like, "Hey, I wonder why they're doing that." And they'll kind of investigate and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is why." And it opens the door to empathy and understanding because we've all been through our own stuff and we're all trying to navigate it and nobody has it all together. So, I wanted to preface with that. But it's pretty interesting. I know I love your question about how birth order can resist change or impact it. It's exactly what you think it would be. Firstborns, they feel that pressure to maintain stability and responsibility. So their changes might be met with expectations to stay reliable, and that leads to resistance if they break from their leader role, right? And so it's kind of like we have our little buckets. And then middle children, since they're so often keeping the peacekeeper role, if they shift dramatically, I could see others being confused or unsure like how to respond since they're usually the ones who maintain balance. You're like, whoa, not expecting that. Youngest siblings, my ladies, I'm so jealous. You're often seen as the free spirits. Could not be me. Changes may be welcomed as part of your growth. And on the other hand, sometimes they might be dismissed and taken less seriously because you're kind of always evolving in a way. And then only children, they're used to being independent, right? So changes might be supported, is self-driven. Others may expect them to handle challenges and change alone, which would lead to less emotional support. Does that make sense?
Mm, yes.
It's
Yes.
awesome, actually,
It
because
is.
I have, high level understood what birth order was, but I guess I didn't dig into it deep enough to really see how it would fit in all of these areas. And it's interesting because we have a what kind of shifter quiz on our website that people can take, and it kind of helps them to learn how they navigate a shift and things like that. But I'm like, I might have to go back and rewrite it and add in this birth order jazz because it is so spot on. And I'm like, I don't know. It makes me feel like I can accept myself a little bit more and be a little
Absolutely.
less critical.
Yeah, I agree. And I know I keep bringing it back to kind of workplace because it's just for some reason there are times where I feel like I miss the mark with some of my, so some of my folks that I work with. And I'm just thinking about the folks that are on my team now, and I'm saying, well, I have a different approach now. I feel like I want to try some different things. And there are a couple of instances where, an idea couldn't come to fruition with one of our team members, but I realized, the disappointment that she felt was because she couldn't lead in that. So now I want to give her another opportunity to be a leader, but not in that particular way. So I feel like it could help me just be a better connector with my team. And Jen, when you asked me about Michael, I'm like, I never brought this into our relationship.
Neither did I. And I
Right.
was like, dang, I'm really thinking about this.
Right. Like, what do I need to
I
provide
noticed
to
it from the
him now?
get-go. It's
And
the
Mm-hmm.
therapist's flaw. I walk in and I'm assessing. it's a wild dynamic. My boyfriend is the middle child of the triplets. They have a sister 5 years older. She did not like when those boys were born. They were born so premature. And it's kind of like a miracle story. They revisit the hospital they were born at every few years to show like, look, we did it. But my, the oldest sister, she is kind of like the people's princess. Like she's born on Father's Day. She's daddy's girl. She's like mom's best friend. And so when it comes to responsibility, the
Mhm.
oldest triplet, he's kind of like, oh God, I love him. He's kind of like the politician role, like kind of does his thing, could talk to a brick wall. We love him. And then my boyfriend, he kind of acts as the oldest in the dynamic where his parents are more likely to say, hey, can you help me with this? Because he's responsible, but he's also that peacekeeper where he's just going to do it. And so I love that I noticed that
Yeah.
immediately. And I think that a lot of the little traits, it's situational and I think they can translate across. But I'm telling you, you guys are, when somebody points something out to you and you're like, I'm never going to be able to unsee it. This is how I feel about birth order.
That is so spot on because now I just want to analyze everyone in my life and just people, anyone. I just but it's such a great tool to make you just a better, relation person, in terms of the relation with them. So I love it, and I love the conversation that was sparked in all of this. Um, do you have any, like, if people that are listening, if our shifties that are listening want to learn more about birth order, is there any place that you would point them to? Any books, any resources?
I am a big Brene Brown fan. I think she's wonderful, and it's not necessarily it's not birth order specific, but I love her Unlocking Us podcast because it also just discusses families, right? And then a book. I have a couple books I wanted to suggest. The first is Kevin Leman. I'm not. It's Leman. I'm not sure. I've never heard it pronounced, but it's the birth order book, Why You Are the Way You Are.
Yeah.
And then the other book I referenced was Why Firstborns Rule the World and Lastborns Want to Change It by Michael Gross.
I love that. Okay. Awesome. And if our listeners, our shifties, want to hear more about you or connect with you, can you share about kind
Yes,
of where you practice and
absolutely.
just
I
more
feel like,
information about that?
I don't know, I feel like I should have mentioned that. But I am in Dallas. I am at Lifeology Uptown. Lifeology is run by Melanie Wells. She's my supervisor, and she's the coolest, badass, most inspirational woman. She started Lifeology, and there's uptown locations. They're all over Texas, all over the country. And yeah, I mean, I guess, do you want me
Hmm.
to? You have my email.
I have a Yeah, I was gonna say I have a question on that. So, a lot we haven't really like dove into helping our shifties learn how to navigate finding a therapist that works for them. But one of the things that I have a question for on shifties finding you, I know that some therapists only do in person, some do virtual, but even ones that do virtual, sometimes they can only legally practice with patients in certain states.
Jen,
So are you like nationwide?
get
How
ready
does
for a
this work?
rant. I love virtual. I love in person. Unfortunately, there is with the board, we have restrictions. So I have to see people in the state of Texas, even if they're in, I don't know, Amarillo. If it's virtual, that's okay. But I think they're making changes on reciprocal licensing at like different states where I think they will be updating that soon. And I
Hmm.
always say if this was a business license, accounting license, finance license, they would have that figured out across state lines ASAP. But therapy, we're getting there.
Hmm. And so that's awesome. So currently, for the folks in Texas, are able to get some support and things with you. So that's awesome. And you're listed as our shift whisperer on our website. So if they click your profile that we have created there, it'll take them directly to all of your contact information. So that's good. I'm so excited. I hope that some people give you a chance because I would love to see what you can do with the client incorporating some birth order stuff because it's been
Thank you.
incredibly
Yeah, I
eye-opening for
love it.
me.
I love meeting new people, and I encourage everyone who hasn't been in therapy, meet with different therapists. You, if you don't love them, so I always tell my clients, if you don't like me and I just annoy the crap out of you, please tell me that. That is the biggest compliment to a therapist, because that means that you feel safe enough to share that, right? It is not a one size fits all. So be patient and just try out different things.
And a couple of things, and maybe you will or won't agree with this, that I always recommend for someone trying to find a therapist. For one, find someone that will do an initial consult with you. Because if they're not willing to do a consult with you to see if you have an initial vibe and connection, that's a red flag for me. Two, does your therapist see a therapist? Because if they don't, then clearly they don't believe in their own work.
Mhm.
And three, just like you said, if you don't vibe with someone, it does not mean you have to stick it out. I mean, I have went through so many therapists to find the right ones, and people don't understand. It's an interview process, because if you're going to be vulnerable and do this type of deep shift work with somebody, you need to make sure that you do trust them and that you do feel heard and seen, and their voice doesn't remind you of your annoying cousin or some thing like that, that's all you can think about every time, or they have a name of somebody you hate and then you can't think of it. There's all these types of triggers, and it's so important. Is there anything else you would recommend for someone when they're navigating trying to find a therapist?
I don't know. I think that therapists, we get really excited with the therapy jargon, with all of our buzzwords. I would encourage therapists, honestly, as a whole, if you're going to write your bio, I put a couple of the TikToks I've done in my bio because I want people to see how I am. I think when people read bios that are like with these big vocab words from psychology, people don't know what that means, right? So I would encourage therapists to make it more relatable and understanding. But for any clients out there, I always say it's better to find someone when you have the time, the emotional bandwidth to go on that interview process, rather than wait until shit hits the fan.
Mm,
You're scrambling, you find someone, they're not
that's
great, but
true.
you really need help, so you stick with it. You do that big dump of everything. No, start that early on. There is no shame. You don't have to come to therapy because something happened. You know?
Hmm. It's like going to the gym because you would like to take care of yourself. And I think the last thing, and it really relates to your birth order talk, is I personally am not a huge fan of talk therapy for myself. Like, it works great for my husband, but I ask therapists, what other techniques and specialties do you have? Do you do EMDR? Do you do walk therapy where we walk and talk? Do you do birth order deep dives? Do you do meditation or energy work? Or, I think there's so many different things that therapists offer as a specialty, um, or variety for people to try to find a method that works for them. But people don't know what they don't know. They
Mm-mm.
don't know to ask for these
I
things.
agree completely.
Emma, you were talking about you like color. I need to hear about that.
Yeah.
This is
Oh,
this is
yes.
this is
Remind me.
my
I got something
thing.
to say about that.
Sure, go ahead.
An adolescent, pre-adolescent activity therapy class. And basically, I had the most wonderful teacher. She's just brilliant. But she always said, "Busy hands free the mind." And I believe that as adults, I was always the kid who loved Office Depot and back to school shopping and all like the color, the markers and everything. And so I think that as adults, we we moved on way too quickly. I love drawing activities like that are so telling for a therapist, but for a client, they're doodling. And we're able to kind of interpret the prompt and then what they decide to do. It's so revealing where you're like, "Oh my goodness, like how did you even know that?" But then we can talk about it and it's wonderful. And so I love my
Hmm.
painting, I love my art, my drawing, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I love that we're trying to. I'm glad you asked me about this because I really don't want therapy for people to look like The Sopranos, or, we had to watch that in school as what not to do. It doesn't have to be that stereotypical way.
Yes. Yes.
Sandra, speaking of color
Yes.
and birth order, did you know that there are typical colors that birth orders are drawn to?
No?
I
Can
know,
we
I found it because it hit me this morning. I was like, oh, I wonder if like birth orders are drawn to certain things. Do you know them off the top of your head, Emma?
I love the psychology of color. I love that website. I think it's like psychologyofcolor.org, but I did not know this.
Yes, so I found it and it says firstborns often described as the leaders, responsible achievers. They are drawn to colors like that represent power and confidence, like reds and darker blues, symbolizing stability and responsibility. Middle children, she's like, yes, I agree. Middle children, known for being adaptable, social, and seeking attention, that might prefer a wider range, potentially including calming blues, greens, or colors associated with yellow. Let's see, youngest children are playful colors, pink, vibrant shades, and all the other colors. Only children, it says red or deeper green, but I'm like, I don't know. There's so many things on here, and it says pink is often linked to playfulness, love, and nurturing. So they have all these colors and the emotions that pair with it. So I'm like,
I
ooh,
put
that's
yellow
so
with
cool. Maybe
middles.
you
When
could
you were
like,
reading it out, I was like, she's going to say yellow.
I mean, I don't know. I'm like, that sounds kind of weird, but I don't know. Maybe you can look into it and pair colors with the birth order, and then you could encourage some people through your TikTok, like, hey, where are my firstborns at? Let me see what you're wearing today or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I anything art related and just a different way of just using your body brain to help process is just I'm so drawn to. So I'm so glad we brought color into the conversation. Well, this was an excellent chat. Emma, thank you so much for joining us today. We learned so much about birth order, how we could use it in our relationships, how it relates to ourselves. And I feel like I have a lot of work to do after this call and really to bring this into my life and into my relationship. So thank you for that. And Emma, do you have any last words before we end off our
I wanted
podcast?
to touch base. I know that we talked about one thing somebody can remember if think about from listening to this if they are starting to question their role in their family. And I have had this conversation with so many clients. So questioning your roles growing up is a sign of growth. That is not a sign of disloyalty. Okay. You are so much more than the role that you were given growing up. Just because it shaped you doesn't mean it has to define you. Starting to question that role is powerful in growth and self discovery, and it's okay to outgrow old patterns, even ones tied to family. You have the freedom to explore who you truly are and choose a path that feels right for you. I know we kind of associate change within the family as we are being disloyal or ungrateful, and that is totally not the case. We're going with the flow and we're adapting, and so never feel like that's wrong.
Man, she's making me feel like our Shift 101 guide is pretty spot on. I'm like, good job.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for those wisdom nuggets. Those were really, really, really important. And
Hmm.
what we want to do now is just do a little shift activation, which is an opportunity for our shifties to take what we've learned today from birth order and really sit with it and reflect with it. So if you're called this week, write down where do you fall in line with your family in terms of birth order? How does that manifest in your relationships and with yourself? I think it's a good time to just kind of think about that. And just for a fun prompt, ask yourself, what if I was a different birth order in my family? And instead of being the youngest, I would be the oldest. And what does that look like? And explore that, because are there certain elements there that you can now call into yourself, even not being in that birth order. So this is the shift activation invitation for the week. And just remember, you don't have to share this. This is not something, this is for your eyes. But if you're someone that wants to be witnessed in all of this, please be sure to share that. And we will, definitely share it with confidentiality, or just read it and just witness it for you. So I invite you all to do that shift activation. So, family dynamics is a major topic, and we hope that this chat on birth order can help you navigate your shifts within your family and yourself. Head over to social media and share what order are you in your family. If this episode spoke to you, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a review and tell us what landed for you in this episode. Share this episode with someone who's on a similar journey. And always remember, we have a shift toolkit, so please be sure to download that from our website. Now go sip something yummy, take a deep breath, and always know you have us to talk shift with. And that's it for today's shift. Thank you so much for sharing this space with us. If you're loving the conversation, become a shifty. Like, follow, subscribe, and most of all, share this episode with someone who's shifting too, or someone who seriously needs to get their shift together.
Do you have thoughts, questions, topic requests, or maybe you're feeling the nudge to collaborate? Visit us at shiftsisterpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. We're so grateful for your presence, your friendship, and your willingness to do the work with us. Because shift happens and we're not meant to do it alone.
We'll meet you back here next time to breathe, reflect, and talk shift.